Welcome to Wildly Wealthy Life, the show that's all about exploring the different paths to a life of freedom and fulfillment and how that ripples through your personal life, family life, and to the community. Join husband and wife power couple Lee and Kat Hughes as they share people's stories from different backgrounds and lifestyles about what it means to live a life well lived. Tune in and take that first step to becoming the best version of yourself, personally and professionally, here on Wildly Wealthy Life.
But I get to guide people to be able to change their mindset to knowing that their money can also make a big difference in the world, that their money can do better than in the stock market. There's other ways to grow wealth in real estate that it's a whole package. You know, maybe you need tax mitigation strategies, monthly passive cash flow, have higher returns and shorter capital hold time. And so being able to work with the investors on that side of the equation, I get to be the guide. I get to help people develop that mindset in it, and not just sort of the skills. It's not just this is how you do a forward paddle stroke. This is how you think about what it's going to feel like to be at the bottom of that rapid.
All right, and welcome again to Wildly Wealthy Life. My name is Lee Hughes, and to my left is an amazing co-host. Her name is Kat. Kat, who do we have on today?
Today we have Susan Elliott. When I met Susan, I met her at a real estate investing event. It's called Real Estate Investor Goddesses. And when I met her, it literally showed me how small my world was, because I have never met anyone who's a river restoration engineer. And when she said that, it literally expanded my world. I was like, wait, what are you again? You mean you kind of figure out where the water in the river goes? Like, that's really interesting to me. That was amazing. She's also spent a decade being an international whitewater kayak instructor, a raft guide, and an adventure traveler. And she's got a love for all things real estate. She's co-managed a suite of short-term rental properties in the epic Columbia River Gorge. That must be beautiful. And she also discovered the world of performing and non-performing notes, and is now leading a company called Flow State Investing, where she helps investors get more time back and build passive cash flow. Susan, welcome to our podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Kat and Lee. It's an honor to be here. And I love that you brought up when we first met, because I saw you too. And just the word wild was certainly at the top of my list, at the top of my mindset, because you were just this like spunky, beautiful creature that I had never kind of person that I'd never seen before. And I'm so grateful that we've come to the point where we've developed a friendship since then. About over a year ago, that was. So.
Yeah, over a year ago now. Yeah. And so Susan is actually also a part of our like morning pod. We have this accountability call every morning. And it's just been such an amazing time getting to know you, Susan. It's been a pleasure. And so Susan, tell us a little bit more about how you got from river engineering to real estate, all these things, kind of like a big overview of it.
Okay, great. Well, you know, the engineering piece has been such a small little sliver of my life. I feel like I spent my 20s, a decade of my life was spent pursuing wild places and experiencing incredible
life.
Exactly. The wild part I get the wild part, and the wealthy part has just recently come on in the past 3 or 4 years when I found real estate, when I embraced the wealth portion of that equation. And but so I was like you said, I was an adventure guide. I was a kayak instructor, and my life pursuit was sort of experiencing these amazing, beautiful places and helping other people experience those places as well. So the guiding aspect was huge for me, because I could take people in a raft, so they didn't need any skills at all, and take them down this conveyor belt of the river into canyons and places that you can only access that way. And you could just watch people's minds be blown every time they see something, eagles swooping down, canyons, beautiful. And to be able to connect with that big and wild place. And then to teach people how to kayak is you're giving them the skill set to be able to conquer those landscapes. And I say conquer, but it's really flow with them and work with them and appreciate them and learn how to do that within yourself. But you know, this was a wonderful life and existence that I had, but I really neglected the financial side of my life. And I had always been a saver, and I brought up to get a good job, get someone, get a job to take care of you. And I knew that there was some way for me to do that, but I just kind of denied the fact that there was this long-term wealth planning as a part of that. And so I decided I wanted to keep sharing the river. I wanted to keep advocating for free-flowing rivers, clean water. So I became a river restoration engineer. I went back to grad school and got my master's. And I work for a company, and all we do is sort of make river systems more healthy. We take out dams. We put in incredible habitat for fish. We help clean water, outside of cities. We build infrastructure so that people can access their rivers better. But it still didn't feel, it still felt locked down to me. And when I found real estate, all of a sudden, the wealth aspect to this life that I had been building came together, because I could suddenly see the long-term potential. And the wealth turned into taking all of these experiences and this lifestyle that I had developed, an appreciation for people and beautiful places, and said, you can have this for the rest of your life. And you can share this with more people, and you can give this to your daughter. And suddenly it was like that doors were just open. And as soon as I embraced that potential in wealth, and I no longer saw it as something that, only greedy people sought was wealth, or that it was all about money. And I see money now as huge potential for giving and to be able to give back. So now I'm in real estate, and I found non-performing notes, and my business partner, Jamie, and I came to that conference where we met you. And we had knew that we wanted to start a company together to do something. And we found the world of notes. We also manage some short-term rentals. I have some long-term rentals, but notes is just this juicy sweet spot where there's really great returns. It's a short-term investment in terms of capital hold time, but there is such a big social benefit piece to it where we can target people who need help staying in their homes, borrowers who just need a little bit of extra creative refinancing to be able to keep their home. So the idea that we can help people keep their homes through investing, and I can still start to build this long-term pathway to having more wealth, having a wilder life. I mean, everything that you guys emulate, that's where I'm at now. It feels like everything's kind of aligning. It's good.
Yeah, that's amazing, Susan. Can you unpack a little bit? There's so much in there, but you know what I really love? I think what I really gravitated to was when you said, you're teaching people how to kayak and to conquer this river, but it's not really as much conquering it as actually knowing how to flow with it, because you can't really conquer a river, I think. I mean, I'm sure it's wild, right? And so you have to learn how to flow with it. And so with that, I love how you guys basically named your company Flow State, right? Because again, when it comes to investing, not just in notes, but just investing in general, it's a huge mountain to conquer. Like, how did you go from having long-term rental to short-term rental to realizing, wait, notes is what I kind of want to flow with? And how are you kind of basically working with that flow as far as like finding your investors and like what notes are, all that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. I mean, that's why we named our company Flow State, is because when you are on the river, if you try to fight the current, if you try to fight the rapids, if you try to control 100% of the scenario, you're going to be struggling the whole time, and you're probably not going to end up where you want to end up.
Yeah.
So taking that piece that we have felt, as well, my business partners, Jamie and Kevin, her husband, have got river guides as well. And so we all kind of understand this idea that when you let go a little bit of the control aspect of it, and you just fully engage with the present moment, and you plan your route, right? But you're flexible to be able to adapt to the circumstances. And that is sort of like being 100% engaged in what you're doing is this state of flow. And to think about translating that to our finances, how do we all cultivate a financial flow state? I found myself getting blocked every time I started talking about finances with my husband when we were first married 10 years ago. It was like a panicky feeling, and there was this block associated with it. And I just wanted it to flow. I wanted it to be fun. I wanted it to feel easy. I wanted it to be really engaging and challenging for my mind, but not struggle with it. And this idea that I can allow I'm sort of cultivating that feeling of like, when I'm working on my finances, when I'm working on investing, I want to be in a space where it's just flowing.
Yeah.
And I think that when we do that, again, you're opening yourself up to opportunities that you may not have thought of otherwise. And in investing, that's all there is like, what else can I do with this?
Yeah.
Who else can I work with here? How else can this be good for the world?
Right.
Because money can do a lot of good things in the world.
Yeah.
So pairing all of that flow state stuff that we kind of felt, very physical feeling of flow state when you're on the water. And now I do a lot of trail running when I'm just like on long runs up in the mountains, with sitting at my computer sometimes and looking at my investing and looking at, talking to people and just letting it flow. What can I do to help you integrate any type of real estate investing strategy into your life? So for notes specifically, to get to the second part of your question there, the notes, it's like, I can help people put their money in that space. So I do a lot of our investor relations in flow state. Jamie and Kevin do a lot of the operations, and I get to be a part of all of it. We all get to be a part of it. We're a small company. Right?
Yeah.
But I get to guide people to be able to change their mindset to knowing that their money can also make a big difference in the world. That their money can do better than in the stock market. Mm-hmm. Their money, there's other ways to grow wealth in real estate that it's a whole package. Maybe you need tax mitigation strategies. Maybe you want monthly passive cash flow. Mm-hmm. Maybe you want to have higher returns and shorter capital hold time. And so being able to work with the investors on that side of the equation, I get to be the guide. I get to help people develop that mindset in it, and not just sort of the skills. It's not just, this is how you do a forward paddle stroke. This is how you think about what it's going to feel like to be at the bottom of that rapid. So I can tell people this is how you do a budget, but really I want to help people think about like, where do you want to be in 5 years with your investing? How do you want to live your life every day? And how can we think about some investing options right now that might help you get there? And if notes aren't what you need in that equation, then great. I bet I can just even put some other options in front of you with people that I know, because we've been in this space for so long. So whatever I can do to kind of help people develop that flow state mindset with their finances, I feel like is tapping into my own flow state, is tapping into my own, like feeling like you're giving back, you're allowing people to change their wealth mindset, which is what was pivotal for me.
I really like the analogy of the river and just flowing with things, because I've been on a few different like whitewater trips, not
yay
as you, but but I do like totally say like as people try to fight against something, it's usually when you end up in the drink, and you're you end up upside down. When going back, I guess, could you maybe visit the time when everything kind of connected for you between finances and the tangible like river guiding and like really being in that sense of flow? How did you bridge the two, like you're working on the river along with your finances?
Gosh, I think I've two major life events come to mind when you say that. And one was about 9 months after my daughter was born. And I was looking for my dream engineering job, and I was getting it because I knew what I wanted and I knew what I could do. And I knew I had the skill set to do it in my dream adventure town, which we were determined to live in. And, but then all of a sudden it clicked in that I was negotiating my salary, and I thought, and I played that out into the future and was like, wow, I can't afford to live here. I can't. And so it was like this clicking moment where I had been working so hard to get this dream job that I knew was going to be impactful, that was going to do good in the world. But all of a sudden it made my heart rate just my heart drop in a way that like, I feel like I'm still going to be struggling. Yeah. And wait a minute, I thought I was trained my whole life to think that the job would take care of me, when really all of a sudden I was like, oh, I have to take care of me. Yeah. Oh, I have control of this. I have the ability to determine how money is going to flow into my life. And there's other options. And that's when I found real estate. That's when we bought our house, we house hacked it, we put an apartment in it. Now it's a long-term rental. We've moved out of that house, and it set me on a course towards real estate that it was like switching that job switch in your head.
Yeah.
That it's not just a job, it's about investing strategy, it's about multiple streams of income. And then the second time that I would say that is when the river piece came back. And I'm so glad you pulled that out, Lee, because it did feel really disconnected for me, like real estate, but I just love being a river guide too.
Mm-hmm.
How are these going to come back together? And it was when, we decided upon flow state and we were, full into it. We knew that notes, there's going to be huge potential in this upcoming market of people that need help staying in their homes.
Mm-hmm.
So that felt really good to go all in to notes. Two, to just focus. We've started down the short-term rental, and I love providing really amazing epic vacation spots for people because I like to take amazing epic vacations. So we do that a little bit, but you get to a point where you need to scale or we want to scale. And it was one or the other. And I'm so glad that we chose notes because then I moved into this place where like, okay, I want to help other people put their capital into notes with us, to partner with us, because it takes a lot of systems to get into notes, right? It takes a lot of work. I know you two know what I'm talking about more than most people, of course. And so to be able to say like, oh, and so that light went off where I was like, I'm a guide. I get to be a guide again.
Once a guide, always a guide, like you said.
Exactly. And you're not always guiding them. You don't always get to choose where you're guiding them. And I like that element of it too. The river, sometimes you have to go with the flow and you end up somewhere that you didn't plan to be, but is somewhere you needed to be, somewhere you needed to go. And I hope that, go ahead, Lee.
Oh, I was going to say just that you had a couple of those like life moments, but it's been a journey like the entire way. You've been evolving and growing. And I think some people, they're waiting for this, epic moment where it's like a sunrise, you're like paddling down, and there's this epic, beautiful scene. And then all of a sudden, like
you get a revelation
happens,
of everything.
But it's like, it's just a couple of life moments where you're like, here's the ting. Now I got to work and I got to go, it's just really fun seeing that. You were going to say something?
No, I like that you brought that out. And it's a woman said to me a woman said something to me one day. I wish I could remember her name. We met in Ethiopia. I was on an internship there and I was visiting Nile Falls. And this is like one of the most beautiful, the Nile. I have to visit the Nile if I'm going to go to Ethiopia, right? my river life. And we were riding in this little rickshaw to this place. And she said to me, I had to leave my previous relationship because my husband never understood that he had to go after his goals. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, he had this dream of owning a bike shop in France. But he always said, oh, no, one day I'll do that. Or one day that will happen. Or one day, and just never understood that, like, if you start taking little steps towards that goal, it's going to like fast track it to happen. And she said, if he never started pursuing that goal, he was never going to realize that there was hundreds of goals behind that goal.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's recognizing those little moments, Lee, that you just brought up of this is a turning point for me. And this is that sunshiny, perfect paddle stroke moment, and labeling it as that, if that's what you need to do. And maybe it's foggy and raining. I live in the Pacific Northwest. It's always foggy and rainy out here sometimes. And, but you just have to reframe it as that moment, because then it becomes that moment. And then you're open yourself up to the next one that comes along. So that initial one for me is saying, I can do more than just having this job, and I can do my job. Like I love being an engineer. I love healing river systems, but I want to do it on my own time. I don't want to be disappointed with my finances at the end of every day.
Yeah.
And so that was an epiphany. And so again, you work for it. You move forward with something.
I just love, Susan, the part where you're like, I was always brought up to think that a job will take care of you. It's really funny how we actually have a lot of guests who have been on this journey as well, where it's like, I follow all the rules, I go to school, I get a good degree, I get a good job, and then you still end up with debt. You still end up with like, oh wait, I still can't afford to live the way I want to live. And especially when you're doing such good work, right? Like, I mean, like restoring rivers and like making sure that there's access to good, clean water. Like, it's just amazing. Like that kind of work, like it really contributes a lot to society. But then at the back end of that, knowing that no matter how much you contribute, you're still not being well compensated as much as you want to, that can actually really support your life and your dreams, right? And so I love this as a reminder to all of our listeners that what you did there was you took ownership and you took responsibility. You had this whole epiphany, right? This whole revelation, but you didn't stop there. You figured out, what do I need to do to actually take care of my finances so that I can live a life that I want to be able to live, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so to encourage our listeners that, you know, the government's not going to take care of us. Our career's not going to take care of us. It's literally you have to take control of and figuring out what are the other, you said the really keyword, multiple income streams, right? It's really good to have multiple income streams, not relying on one thing. And so that's amazing, Susan. Thank you for sharing that. Can we talk a little bit more diving into notes? Because you said a couple of times, you know, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to need help staying in their homes. How does note investing, like you as an investor, right? When you think about investing, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to make money, right? Which is what we're here for, which is investors. We want to make money. We're not doing this for fun. Although it is fun.
I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean. There has to be a little more than fun, too.
Yeah, exactly, right? But it has to be more than fun. How does that relate to, I'm the investor, I'm making money, but then I'm also helping someone stay in their home? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that this is a passion of you two as well, which I love having conversations with people about notes. It's a weird kind of secret world of real estate investing because the note is essentially your mortgage. There's more to it than that, but that's what most people think of as a note. So when someone stops paying on their mortgage, they're in default. And that means that note is non-performing. Performing means you're paying your mortgage every month, and you're paying it to someone who owns that note. So someone is making money off of every mortgage payment that we make, right? And they're not having to fix the toilets when they break. They're not having to do the yard maintenance or fill vacancies, right? So how do I get to become that person? That was the first kind of light bulb with notes, and that this is a form of real estate investing to be on that side of the equation. But the non-performing side, you know, if people are in default, those notes are much lower value because they're kind of a hassle at that point. And most of those notes are owned by bigger funds, bigger hedge funds, institutions who don't have the system set up in place to reach out to that borrower, like one-on-one, reach out to them and see if they can like figure out a new scenario to help that person start making payments again.
Right.
And we think of that as, you know, it's kind of creative refinancing. But if you can lower someone's monthly payments, they might be able to start performing again and be able to keep that home for the long term. And the statistics are such that, you know, owning property, owning real estate, owning a home exponentially increases your chances of having financial stability for you and for the generations that are going to come behind you. So it's a really pivotal key moment that if you can help someone stay in their home, you're not just giving them a day-to-day house over their head, which you are, and that's hugely beneficial. You're not just helping the communities that no longer have a vacant house in the neighborhood, that have a steady person who was keeping up with their home, but you're also helping potentially generations to come. By showing them that. So if we can work with those borrowers to get them to start making payments again, then we can make that note perform again. And then all of a sudden we have a performing asset, which is worth a lot more when we go to sell it than to other note investors. At that point, it's just mailbox money. And a lot of note investors just want to have that monthly easy mailbox money. They don't want to deal with getting the borrowers to reperform, working out new terms, doing all of the due diligence that goes into this process. Because we are making an investment here. We want to be sure that our money is as secured as we possibly can. So by developing those systems, we can kind of tap into the potential market of non-performing notes that are coming up here. And like you said, this is an investing. So, you know, we can put on our positive impact hat and know that what we're doing with our money is potentially doing something really good for communities and individuals in the world. And then we need to put on our, like, is this the best use of my financial resources? And when you get notes to reperform, non-performing notes, it is all about that due diligence process. And we get to do so much of that before we even make an offer. So note investing from our mentor that we learned from, I know you all learned from Paige Panzarello as well, that she got into note investing because she could mitigate so much risk as compared to a ton of other real estate investing strategies that she had been in. We mitigate risk by researching that property because we could end up with the house. If we have to foreclose, we end up with that house. We need to know that that baseline return is going to still provide a high enough return to our partnership that this makes sense. But what's nice is that we can have those baseline returns and then shoot for much, much, much higher, higher.
Yeah. That's amazing, Susan. I just love this whole, I always attribute real wealth as, what you really truly have wealth when you also know how to serve other people, right? And it's wealth is not just about what you can gain; it's really also about what you can give. And so, just from your work as a river restoration engineer and to work with notes, there's so much like service. There's so much like service to the public, to the communities. It's just such an amazing thing. And so, I just thank you for your heart because again, like it's not just about building like your own wealth and your own legacy, but you're also really helping build other people's like legacy, so
well, thank you too for having this kind of podcast where you're redefining wealth in that way. And because the more people that I think can redefine wealth in that way, the more people like Susan 10 years ago you're going to reach who thought that wealth was like a dirty word, right, or just like not worth pursuing, that I'm inevitably taking advantage of people, or I'm self-centered, or all of these things that are not wealth. To be able to pull out the elements there that you do on every podcast episode that you guys produce, it's phenomenal for changing the way we look at it, because we can all do so much more good if we look at wealth in the way that we're talking about here. I think.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. And then would you have maybe your own like definition of wealth as it stands right now, and then 3 actionable tips that everybody, who's listening could actually start implementing in their own lives?
Yeah. So wealth, my first thought with defining wealth is like long-term freedom to be able to serve your highest purpose and like fully experience your life. So being wealthy is fully experiencing life and being able to serve your true calling that the world needs out there. Right. And for 3 actionable tips, I thought about this, and the one is wild. I got to address the wild aspect of living a wild, wealthy life. What is wild to you? And to integrate an element of wild into your life, whatever that is. Maybe it's just like going and running around a park like you're an airplane with your 3-year-old in the middle of a public place. Maybe that's wild. Or maybe it's like going rafting on the Zambezi River in Africa, which is kind of my next wild move, hopefully as soon as we're able to travel again.
Yeah.
And define what is wild to you, because there's something in just embracing the idea of wild that you just become alive and free, something about it. So define what's wild to you, 1. 2, redefine wealth in your own terms and write it down and connect wild and wealth. I just love the name of your podcast for this, because you can put those two together. And that was such a turning point for me to be able to redefine both wild and wealth, and connect them together. And then take a little daily action every day. Put that in front of you to be able to say, what can I do today to move towards my first wild, wealthy goal, or my first wild goal? Like I said, maybe it's just a run through the park, or maybe it's a bigger trip that you need to start saving up for. But map out a little progress chart to that one goal and start taking little tiny steps towards it. Because every time you take a step, it's amazing that goal actually moves closer to you.
Yeah.
So when you think of it as like, this is the crazy far destination and I'm just taking little tiny steps towards it. But what you don't see is that goal is like, the world is bringing that goal closer to you. You just have to take a couple little steps to get there.
It's like one push on a kayak. And the river is flowing you towards that end goal.
Exactly. Get into the flow, and the river knows where to go.
I would love to take a trip with you, man. It's just
you will. It's
just so fun. It's like, you are my girl. I love adventures.
You
For the
will.
most part, I'm scared of everything. For the most part, I'm literally like super scared of everything. But I am, but I just do it. You know,
Yeah.
I'm scared, but okay. I'll be
Her
like,
courage
this.
outpaces her fear, but she does have this like, oh, what am I doing? Okay, just go. And then just makes it happen.
Says the woman who's like hundreds of feet in the air on ribbons and rings. It's like, oh, for me.
Very different, because that one I can control.
Or jumping out of a
Exactly.
plane.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, don't you worry. It's all about having a good, confident guide. Kat.
Yes,
Kat and Lee, you're
true.
more than welcome. I can't wait to have you up here in the Pacific Northwest and show you my favorite rivers.
That would be amazing. Well, Susan, it's been such a lovely time with you. We just appreciate you being with us. It's just such a fun conversation. We are going to transition into our quick 10 rapid fire questions. These are questions we ask all our guests. Some of them are related to our podcast theme. Some of them are not. Just say the first thing that comes to your mind and don't censor yourself. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Number 1, if you could choose one book to live by, what would it be?
Probably High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard.
Sounds great. We've been talking about this every morning.
Every morning. It's been really good this year. Or Sacred Success by Barbara Stanny.
Oh, nice.
Your personal hero, living or deceased, someone you know or maybe don't know personally.
I serve on a board of directors for American Whitewater and the stewardship staff that have worked for decades in the river conservation landscape, just seem to have a unlimited heart-filled bucket to protect wild places. And I see these guys and girls just give so much. And so I look at their model of life, where they also go on trips to celebrate the rivers that they're protecting. And so they're pairing their lifestyles with this like kind of passionate work that they do. And so I think about the stewardship directors of the nonprofit that I work with as the first guys and girls that come to mind for that.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Okay. Number 3, the one thing you intentionally have to do every single day.
Give my husband a kiss.
Oh, that's cute.
and stop and just see him, look in his eyes and appreciate him, because he's the foundation of my home. He and I are the foundation of our family. We have this beautiful daughter. When I can connect with him, then I can like authentically connect with my daughter as well. And we, it is us. We are our people. So
yeah.
That's amazing.
Good. One hobby that brings you the most joy.
Ooh, okay. Well, right now it's trail running. You'd think I'd say kayaking because that is something, but trail running right now and being able to zone into a flow of running for hours in the mountains is really like breathing fresh air, seeing different landscapes as I'm coming over the hills. Susan, finding a way to use my body.
You're my hero, because you know how like when we started our pod, one of my goals was just literally to run a mile every day. And even like my first day, I was trying to run and like 0.2 miles and I was already breathless. And you're like running for miles and miles on a mountain trail. I'm like, what?
That, but she can sit and dance for like 7 hours straight and just like
exactly.
So it's just different.
Thank you, Lee. Exactly. I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. Most rewarding thing you've done for someone in need?
I was able to volunteer for some kayaking camps for cancer survivors. And it's called First Descents. And we take cancer survivors, cancer strugglers, they're still fighting it, and teach them how to kayak. And really, you're teaching them these hard skills of kayaking. But what you're doing is teaching them how to overcome challenges. And to see them translate that to their battle or their flow with cancer was so profound. It's one of my most favorite weeks of kayak instruction, of getting to, share a skill set that I have with people who take it such and integrate it into such deep levels of their life. Yeah. As I become financially free, one of my goals is to be able to volunteer for 2 or 3 of those weeks every year. Yeah. Watching them integrate it is pretty profound.
Yeah.
That's You're like
really
an
cool.
amazing guide. This is cool. I'm picturing like one of those like, betterment weeks or something where you could just bring a bunch of people and like help them enrich their own lives and everything. It's amazing. All right. So, okay. Number 6 is the last song you sang out loud?
Moana, because I have a 3-year-old. And it's when Moana like knows that she has this calling to go out into the ocean and to see this bigger, broader world, but she's so connected to her home people that she's struggling and she wants to be there. And I'm almost ready to break out into song with you right here, but I won't because I'm not trained.
I love that. Okay, number 7, last big purchase you made for yourself.
Ooh, well, we just moved. Okay, my home right here that I'm sitting in is my dream home. And because it's in my dream community and it's next to my dream river that I want to paddle. It's next to my dream trails. It's literally next door to my dream like little cohort family of my daughter's best friend. And I got to do it by purchasing it from a friend of mine who carried the notes. So we got to go through all of the note stuff together.
Amazing.
And work it out and write it. But to give ourselves this gift of a place that I never thought I would be able to afford to live. And now we're here and we're doing it. So,
wow.
Yeah, that was a big gift.
That's cool.
Congratulations. It's so cool.
Yes.
Food you cannot live without.
I coffee. It's probably coffee. I just love it. And I go without it sometimes to just check my habit.
Yep.
Make sure. But yeah, I just love it. It's so dreamy and smooth.
Dreamy. I love that. Okay. What is your spirit animal?
The seagull.
What?
I think someone told me that a long time ago and I was like, ew, a seagull. Like, aren't they squawking crazy birds? But I love the seagulls because they pop up and remind me of water. And I think that I now see seagulls as this sort of we have seagulls here. I live, 2 or 3 hours from the coast, but I live near the Columbia River where we have incredible salmon runs that come up here. So the seagulls come up this way as well. We get a lot of ocean wildlife, even this far up inland. And the seagulls just, they're not afraid to be loud and squawky too. You just kind of like, it's a bird that I've loved. It's an animal that I've loved to appreciate, despite thinking that it was a kind of an annoying animal at first.
Yes,
so I think I'll just have to embrace it as my spirit animal.
I love
Own it.
Own it. Yeah, I so love that.
All right, number 10, finish this sentence. If I'm stuck on an island by myself, ... I
would probably go for a run.
Acceptable.
to explore the island.
Yeah, that's
awesome. Well, Susan, thank you for being with us. I have 2 more parting questions for you. Number 1, where can our listeners find out more about you? And number 2, if you were to encourage our listeners to give or serve into something, what would that be?
1, you can find me at flowstateinvesting.com. You can also just shoot me an email, susan@flowstateinvesting.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. Susan Hollingsworth Elliott is my full name there, as well as Flow State Investing. Instagram, I'm at She Seeks Flow. And I would say that to start thinking about your finances, your investing, which we traditionally think of as very self-serving, as the potential to do extreme good in the world. And that's the money that I have that I want to use to grow more money. I want to get my money working so that I don't have to as much. But that money can not only free me up to have more time to do good in the world, but that money can do good in the world too. I think that we just when we accept that as a potential, even we open ourselves up to those kinds of opportunities, and then they'll come our way. Yeah. So know that your money can do good in the world, and you can make money off of that. As well.
That's really awesome. One last question, just because I'm curious. Do you have a favorite river that you have been on?
Okay. The Mekong River in China. And it flows off the Tibetan Plateau. It's really close to the source of the Mekong. And right there on the Tibetan Plateau, they call it the Three Rivers region in China. It's now China. It used to be more Tibetan, but all Tibetan culture up there. And it's the source of the Yangtze, the Yellow, and the Mekong, 3 of the greatest rivers in the world. And you're floating down and there are streams of prayer flags flying above you from mountain peaks. And you're just like, how did this happen here? And there's no roads in places, yet you float past a monastery where people live 6 months out of the year when it's not, packed in snow and ice. Yeah. And they get there by little mopeds over the hillsides, and just the people's connection to that landscape and how wild it is incredible. And it's like every beautiful river I've ever seen all packed into one 9-day trip. So the Upper
Oh,
Mekong,
my
as
goodness.
they call it, the Dachu, is one of the most breathtaking places I've ever been. So thanks for
Wow.
asking that, because
No
it's
worries. Yeah.
I just had goosebumps.
You do. Like real
I'm
ones.
just like, ah,
I wish I
wanna
could zoom
go
in.
there.
That's awesome.
Zoom in.
Zoom. We're zooming, aren't we all zooming?
This is awesome.
Well,
Thank you very
yeah.
much, Susan. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
And for everybody who's listening, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, of course. But do hunt out Susan on Flow State.
Yeah,
This is really awesome.
flowstateinvesting.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I truly love the conversation that you're inspiring. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan was so fun to talk to, and just especially because it's such a different world, right? Like it's not a world that we are involved in, although it would be so fun to just go out there and like adventure with her. But it's really, really awesome how she relates like being a guide with whitewater rafting and how she's now guiding people into finding wealth through note investing.
Yeah, it's really awesome. Just that was one of the biggest takeaways is like taking something that you love, that it's your hobby, that's something that speaks to you, and being able to relate it in a way that help people understand and make big changes in their lives. So it's just really awesome. Really appreciated her time today with us.
Yeah, and next week we have Liz Faircloth. Liz Faircloth, she's Matt Faircloth's wife. Matt Faircloth was in our episode.
Or is it that Matt is her husband?
Sounds great. However you want to refer to her. But basically, I say she's the better half because they always say that, the women are the better half, right? So anyway, Liz Faircloth, she's got her own podcast called Wow Real Estate Investor. Her heart is really to serve women and empower them to be real estate investors and empower them to live a financially free and balanced life. So really excited to share her with you next week. Make sure you guys tune in. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wildly Wealthy Life. We hope that this episode has helped you take another step towards living fully, giving freely, and building a legacy that deeply impacts your community. We'd love to hear what you think about today's show. Please leave us a review or like us on iTunes and YouTube, and click the subscribe button so you won't miss a show. You can also visit us at wildlywealthylife.com for today's show notes. See you on our next episode. Thank you, and may you live a wildly wealthy life.